Aloha. Hey, it's Julie Ziemelis with 365 Hawaii and Keller Williams Realty. And I'm here for our monthly TTT, where we're going to be discussing the island-wide statistics and trends and also information that you need to know about buying real estate on the Big Island, Hawaii. Today we have Lance Owens, who is with Luba Realty, and he's the president of the West Hawaii Association of Realtors. We have Delaney Branham, who's with eXp Realty. We've got Jana with Keller Williams Realty, Eric Ziemelis with Keller Williams Realty, and Marla Wynn and Scott Wynn from the Wynn and Egan team Citywide Home Loans. And we are bringing you guys today the information and news you can use to see what's happening with the market. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Lance about what's happening with West Hawaii single family homes and condos. Lance?
Hey, great. Thanks. I appreciate it, you guys. Real quick, North Kona Homes. My quick report by the seat of my pants is everything is moving along very well. We're staying very busy. I don't see anything that I'm reading about in the news, but to give us the black and white numbers, I'll jump into it real quick. So residential homes last year sold 47 sold during the month of August, and we're tracking about 40 to 42 selling this August. So just off a little bit. In our inventory looking today, we had 102 homes available on the market to view. So once again, for people that's new, we typically should have 150, 160 homes on the market. In January, we had 49 homes on the market. So doubled in our inventory, but we're still only 2/3 of the way of where we should be. So we're still going to see the effect on price and days on the market because of that. Looking at homes, condos, condominiums last year during August sold 51. We're at 34 today, so we're tracking about 40. So that number is down because of availability. We just don't have the inventory. Condos are still sitting down at 34 condos available on the market today in Kailua Kona. And that's not putting any filters on there for bedrooms or leasehold or fee simple or any price points, anything. So we are down considerably. We should be at about 130 condos, I think, a month. So jumping over to the median price. We're going to look at North Kona homes. Last year, they were at $928,000 was the median price. This August, as we're tracking as of this very minute, we're at $1.125 million is the median home price here in Kona. So it's a 21% increase month over month, and it's an 18% increase year to date. And we've been running that 18% year to date for several months in a row. So that seems to be pretty steady. Condominiums, we are looking at last August was $385. This August, we're at $597 as a median price for a condo in Kailua Kona. So that's up 55% month over month, and that is up 32% year to date. So
Lance, in August in West Hawaii, is this kind of like the worst time of year for real estate in general, just over the course of like time?
It typically is because it's hot. It's still warm on the mainland. People are getting their kids ready for school. They're starting them in school. They're doing things like that. So it's typically a slower month. We're different than the rest of the state. So if you're looking at numbers statewide, we are more of the snowbirds that come to the Big Island. And so we will see our traffic pick up typically, from Thanksgiving to Easter. But it gets really strong around Christmas to Easter.
So, okay, very good.
Yeah.
So theoretically, if this is a low time to buy a home, this is actually a decent time to buy a home because you're not competing with the snowbirds.
Correct. You don't have the snowbirds in here typically. And again, we've got inventory up. I am noticing that people are taking a little bit of time to think about their purchase and look at it and compare it. And they're not, it's not the frenzy, the shark frenzy that it was. So again, still moving, but they're taking time, and that's a good thing. It's good to not make a quick judgment, to make sure you're doing the right choice. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Lance. So let's bring in Delaney. So what we're going to be doing every month now, what Delaney is going to be helping us with, is we're looking at 3 specific markets here in West Hawaii. They are like, they're like what's the word? Not their subdivisions, so that you can get a better idea in terms of what's happening with them. And she's going to be looking at Pualani Estates and Lokahi Makai as single family, and then also Alihilani as condos. So Delania has done the research. Delania, what's the story?
So we'll start with Pualani Estates, and the reason I'm looking at this one in Lokahi Makai is terms of neighborhoods is they're very similar houses, similar lot size, same builder, so really comparable across the neighborhood. Right now in Pualani Estates, active listings are between 895 and 995, or 995,000. 895 would be great. The most recent sales, July and August, were between 900,000 and just over $1 million. So if you go back to the beginning of the year, about 6 months, they were between 840,000 and 890,000. So ticked up already in this year that we're dropping prices. They've gone up. And the current actives are pretty comparable to what just sold. And then it's interesting, if you go back to 2021, early in the year, they were selling between 690 and 810,000. And then 2 years ago, same neighborhood, 599,000 and 625 early in the year. So you can see the tick, 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 tick up. We're there. Lokahi Makai, similar neighborhood. This one's in Palisades area, so a little north, but still a popular Kona neighborhood, newer homes-ish. There's not as much activity in there. There's one currently active. It's listed at 850,000. The most recent sales were actually in May and June, so a couple months back, and those were 920 and 930,000. Go back to the beginning of the year, just like in Pualani Estates, they were down 829,000, and the high was 851,000. And going back to 2021, same thing you're seeing. That early in the year, they were selling between 640,000 and 720,000. Go back to 2019, it was 575,000 and 650,000. So same cycle, really similar price increases in both of those neighborhoods. Looking at a condo, Alihilani is a great kind of bellwether for what the market is doing. Currently active right now, they're running between 489,000 and 565,000. Most recent sales, July and August, were between 462,000 and 515. So a little below what's actually currently active this month. Beginning of the year was 411,000 to 545,000. Now there are 2-bedroom and 3 bedrooms in there, so that's where the higher price comes in, those 3 bedrooms generally. Early 2021, you could get a unit in there between 297,000 and 395,000, and then go back 2 years. Not as much of a drop, but 275,000 to 340,000 were the sales prices there. So across the board, you know, we've gone up, and even since the beginning of the year, with everything that's going on, prices are still climbing steadily. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few months. We'll keep checking in on those 3 and just see when they start to hopefully trickle back down.
Okay, real quick, just for people who might be listening from the mainland who are unfamiliar with the Kona market intimately, can you tell them a little bit where Pualani Estates is and the other 2, just so that they know?
Yeah, so Lokahi Makai is closer to the airport. It's kind of the northernmost. We call it Palisades area, so that's a huge swath of homes and neighborhoods. It's closer to the airport, kind of close to Kua Bay. So a popular area. Pualani Estates is right above town, so people love it because you're sort of close to everything. Another one, there's a park, a city park in the bottom of the neighborhood, so that's a very popular neighborhood. Lots and lots of homes in there. And then Alihilani is a condo that's on Ali'i Drive across from the ocean, so it's not oceanfront, but it's a pretty comparable. Pretty close walk to town, so it's a popular, and it's really high density, so we get a lot of activity in there, so it's a good one to sort of watch what's happening.
Thank you, Delania. That's going to be great, and then we can keep looking at that on month to month to find out really what's happening with the housing market. So awesome. So next we have Jana, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what's happening in Waikoloa Village. What are you doing?
Okay, so Waikoloa Village, right now we have 17 active residential listings. which is really nice. It's been a while since we've had that many. Contingent and sold, we had 4 sold in the last month, and we have 12 contingent. So that's picking up as well. We've got a little more inventory, a little more, you know, activity going on. The average days on market, though, has changed. It's 35 is the average days on market right now in Waikoloa Village. That hasn't happened for a while. It still is the case that if you have a great house that's reasonably priced, it will sell fast, like within a week, definitely. Most of the time, but you do have some houses that are kind of spending a little more time on the market, which wasn't happening 2 months ago, as we all know. So that's kind of nice for buyers. In the condo market, there are 11 active condos now. So that's nice to see that. They range from $439 for a 793 square foot condo to $4 million at Montalani Terrace. So there's a pretty big variation there in the condo markets. And as far as what's sold, there were 8 that were sold and 14 that are either contingent or under contract right now. And the average days on market on the condos is just 9 days. So pretty big difference between the condos. Just like Lance said in Kona, same thing's happening up in Waikoloa and the Kohala area. Let's see where this one is. Okay, in the Waikoloa resort area, so so the piece of the pie that incorporates Waikoloa Village also gets Montalani. So the next piece of pie over is the Waikoloa Resort, and you've got 8 contingent, 3 sold with 11 days on market, and 14 active listings. And those are pretty popular because those are the ones that are the short-term vacation rentals that people like. Those are pretty popular. So they range from $859 to $4 million. So again, pretty big variation in price depending on what you're looking for down there. A little further north, if you go up to Kohala by the Sea, Kohala Estates, Kohala Ranch, let's see, we've got 7 active residential listings and 2 were sold in the last month. Now, land is a little bit different. That's kind of a whole nother ballgame that we could probably have a whole discussion over on land, but there's quite a bit of land that is for sale up there too. So 28 lots you have right now in the Kohala area, which a lot of people during the whole COVID thing kind of gave up on finding a house and just bought lots. And then they found that it takes 2 years to build a, but there still are some lots. So in the Waimea, Mauna Kea, Hapuna slice of pie, we have 29 active listings that go anywhere from $369 to $8 million. Only one contingent. So not as much going on there. Average days on market is 80 days for that piece of pie. Condos, there are just 3 active, and contingent, there are 18. So we're seeing a little more inventory. We're seeing more days on market for residential in Kohala, but not necessarily for the condos. The condos still seem to be moving pretty quickly.
Good job. Good job. And also for our people who are listening to our podcast, Amber Haley is going to be doing the audio portion of that for East Hawaii statistics. So if you would like to hear that, tune into the podcast. And she is going to be giving you guys the lowdown on that. So let's go over to our mortgage department and hear what Marla and Scott had to say about what's happening with the mortgage market.
Great. So currently, mortgage interest rates have bumped up over the last week or so, just a little bit, just slightly. We're sitting on average at the high fives, about 5.8% or so. The thing that's difficult about mortgage rates is, of course, everybody's situation is significantly different depending upon credit score, down payment, whether you're occupying it as a primary residence or a second home or an investment property. So all of those things can, of course, impact interest rates. But if we just look at the general trends, they're generally staying in the mid to high fives right now in general. So just looking at some of the forecasts and such, a lot of the forecasts anticipate that as inflation stabilizes and maybe drops, we might see a drop in interest rates as that occurs. If we look at inflation over the last couple of months, it looks like we may have peaked a couple months ago, dropped from the peak of 9.1% down a little bit. And so we'll see what happens here mid-September on the next release of where inflation is, and that may cause some additional drops in interest rates as well. So that's kind of where things are at with mortgage rates.
Okay. Hey, so I have a good one for you. Somebody said, if you don't like your mortgage interest rate today, that maybe you can refi in 2 years and get a better one, which will help your home, have a little extra money every month. What do you guys think about that? Do you think it's going to be coming down enough to want to do a refi and get a better mortgage rate in a few years? Is that a strategy?
I think that, yes, absolutely, it can be a strategy. I mean, certainly that's what some of the people have done over the last couple of years when interest rates hit very low rates, is take advantage of those through a refinance. Again, it goes back to looking at each individual situation. There's no really good rule of thumb to say that, if you can drop your interest rate 1%, it makes sense. Because if you only have a $50,000 balance remaining on your mortgage, it probably doesn't make sense, right? So it really depends on a lot of different factors. And so one of the things that we do for our clients and advise anybody to do if they're looking at a refinance is to do a real true cost analysis of what that refinance will do for you. Because generally a refinance is going to have some negative short-term implications, because there are closing costs that are generally rolled into the new loan. So your loan balance is going up so that you can avoid any out-of-pocket expense to complete a refinance. And so by doing that, the immediate impact is negative. But the benefit, of course, is that you're reducing your interest rate. So by reducing your interest rate, you're reducing your monthly payment, and eventually that increased balance will pay off through a reduced monthly payment, and you'll benefit from it over the long term. But you want to look at not only the cost that you're incurring and the benefit that you're going to receive in terms of monthly payment, but also the remaining term on your mortgage. Let's say you only have 12 years left on your mortgage and you do a new 30-year loan, you might save significantly on a monthly payment, but you're adding a lot of time back onto your mortgage where you're going to pay a lot of interest. So you're going to want to look at all those different factors and make sure it makes sense. But if interest rates reduce back down to the low fours, certainly, I think a refinance could certainly be beneficial, but you're going to want to make sure to run all those calculations.
Okay. Yes, Lance?
Scott, I had a question. If you only had 7 years left on your mortgage and you wanted to do the refi, can you get a 7-year home loan, or is it got to be a 10 or 15, or can you keep it low?
So good question. You can generally do mortgages in 5-year increments, starting at a 10-year term on the lowest up to a 30. So 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30-year terms.
Great. Thank you.
Piggyback on what Scott said related to refinances too, because I don't think you mentioned this, but sometimes if you're dropping mortgage insurance, either if you have a current FHA loan or if you have mortgage insurance on a conventional loan, then you might not need as big of a drop in interest rate in order to make that pay off in the long run as values increase. So we saw a lot of people doing that over the last 2 years also.
And another one, this happened just like yesterday. I have a buyer who is on a fixed income, and she was wanting to buy a condo, but she doesn't have quite enough cash, so she just wanted a small loan. And so I asked the WIN team if they could actually do mortgages for less than $200,000, and they could. And so that way she can just get enough that she needs to kind of just bump up enough to be able to get into a decent condo. So that's an opportunity for people that maybe they don't know about, that you don't have to have a $300 or $400 $1 million mortgage, that you can actually get that enough to get over that hump to be able to buy a home here. So thank you guys for giving me that information. So I thought that'd be interesting to kind of jump into trends, and kind of get this group of people talking about what they're seeing to see where we're kind of going to head into fall. And I know that Lance had done some reading on maybe what's happening in terms of the market and how it's holding up here in Hawaii. And compared to some things that might be happening in the mainland. Lance, do you want to talk about like what you're seeing and what you're reading about, give some information?
Yeah, it's funny because we had the conversation a couple of days ago, and then I woke up this morning and they're already saying, it was just a couple of days ago, they said that we're coming into a housing recession. And then today I saw a headline said the housing recession's ending. And I went, well, that was a quick 2 days. And some of that was taken out of context. They said NAR said that, and if you looked over what Lawrence Yun said, he made a reference to a housing recession, but he didn't say that we're literally physically in it. He said it was something similar to a housing recession. So you really got to read beyond the headlines and get locally. You really need to dive in with someone that lives here, works here, breathes here, and has watched the market over the years and can help you, because it is very, very deceptive reading headlines. Again, I read those whole articles. I sent it to you at 10 o'clock at night, I think, and I'm like, read this. It doesn't say anything really in here. It was that headline sucked me in. And I think all of us here in this group, we all watch and read and make sure that we're on top of it. So I read it to make sure there wasn't something I missed.
Yeah. In fact, and then, people can pop in here if you are looking at different headlines, like you said, you can get different stories, wildly different stories. And, but listening to the numbers that all of you guys just presented, we're not heading towards a crash. You're not seeing massive amounts of homes being dumped on the market with massive price depreciation. But Eric, I'm calling him the hot sheet guy. He checked the hot sheet before we started this meeting to kind of give you guys a little bit more about what's happening locally. Eric, do you want to give him some, what'd you see?
Sure. So I was there today checking out some things, and it's interesting how some appear to be going above asking price, and it's reading what all you guys are saying. We've got some pretty good price drops on a couple of things. I would say we're probably overpriced at the beginning, but it's just fun to watch every day and see where it's going, what's happening, whether it's up, down, around, and what's going on.
Yeah, because I've noticed, and Delaney and I were talking about this too, that there are some homes that were put on the market by unrealistic sellers before, right? Delaney, is that what we're talking about? Sometimes that people haven't gotten the memo yet that the market's starting to change, right? And so then you have people then going like, oh no, and then they have to start putting some price reductions on. Yeah, that's how that's going right now.
100%. Yeah, and it's sort of, the market's all over the place, because some places are coming on, like we were talking about the one in is it Kulikini Makai? It just sold for $1 million. Like, that's so expensive for that neighborhood, but it sold, and it sold quickly. And then other ones we're seeing $100,000 reductions and stuff selling under asking. So it's kind of like it's sort of all over the place. It's really hard to kind of get a good bead on the market. But I think looking at stats and looking at history, the trend overall is prices are still ticking up. We're not crashing, regardless what the headlines say.
Right. And then Lance and I were also talking about what's happening in the mainland that they're talking about there, and it's kind of showing up here, is that people are pulling inventory if they can't go someplace else. So what's happening is that what I'm hearing is that this is like a lateral move market where people are trying to sell a house to get to a house. And so if there's not a lot of inventory, either people are staying put or they're having to put a whole bunch of money to try and get out of the house they're in, which is keeping the prices up. And the anomaly that people are seeing now across the nation is, how is it that we're supposed to be in a housing recession and housing prices are still going up? And I think they said basically it's an inventory issue. Yeah. The Lance, is that kind of...
Yeah. And one thing I remember back in 05 and in 06, we even had a lot of realtors that were speculating buying. They only went in to buy something to make $100,000 off of it in 2 years. That was the only reason they bought. And I personally haven't seen any of that in the last 2 years. These are people that are moving or going to move here. They're not the speculators. It's just, so I think that's a big thing. So they aren't getting scared. They aren't flipping it. They aren't just dumping it on the market. They can sit on it. The rent will pay for it if they need to rent it out. One thing is we kind of kidded around because when rentals are tight like they are now, you can't even have a parakeet and rent a place, but during 08, 09, 010, you could have had a pet elephant and they would have let you in if you would have paid the rent. So it's, it's a totally different market.
Sorry if you can hear my cat behind me. Jana, in terms of what you're seeing up there, since you're in such a wildly different market in terms of high-end housing, when people make price reductions up there, they're making a big production. I mean, are they there's a $100,000, $150,000 price reduction, or are you not seeing price reductions at this point up there? Unmute.
Okay, sorry. No, we are definitely seeing some pretty big price reductions up here for sure. But I think that you said earlier, the ones that are having the price reductions maybe were a bit overpriced to start out with. Maybe they went on the market too high. And so, yeah, when you see some price reductions, that people are kind of acclimating to this new market.
Right. And just, and there, besides people who are moving to the island, trying to think about they're buying homes who are watching this, there's some sellers who are watching what we're talking about as well. And so the seller strategy at this point is, from what we're talking about, is price your home correctly the first time. Right. And listen to your realtor, right, who's running cabs, and I think that Delaney and I were talking about that sometimes people are looking at the 45-day-old data when they're trying to figure out what they're going to price their home on now, and things have changed. So Lance, what if you had to put a house on the market right now and you were looking at how to price it, would you price it what you're seeing right now in the market, and then or do a little bit lower to try and get some activity around it?
The biggest thing that I look at, because you're right, if you can't use 45-day-old comps anymore, because it is changing kind of rapidly. So my favorite thing, and you guys probably do this too, but because that the clients pulled up Zillow, they've pulled up Zestimate, what's it say, and then I pull up RPR, which is a Realtor Property Resources, which is only available to realtors, and it's about a lot more accurate than the Zestimate is, so it's good to look at that. And then you just got to turn around and look at, again, the seat of your pants, what's happening. Is there, you got to narrow it down to that little market you're in. Is there 5 homes priced at $1 million to $1.5 million where you're going to be at, or is there 35 homes priced in that range? That's a tough point to be in. You don't want to be where there's 35 homes that are competition. And now that we're at 102 homes available in the market today, it does open it up. So you really want to look at it. I pretend if the client just got off the airplane and he had $1 million hanging out of his shirt pocket, what am I going to go show him today? And I share that with my client. It's like, okay, he just landed at the airport, he got $1 million. We're going to look at these 15 homes. How do you rate yours in these 15 homes?
Do other realtors want to tap into that? If sellers are listening right now, any seller strategy that you would suggest that they look at?
Well, I would say too that when you're looking at houses that are all around in the same price point, you see some vastly different levels of care, maybe in Waikoloa Village. So a house might be $1 million and be just buttoned down perfect. You can tell the owners if something goes wrong, they fix it. It's in great shape. You could move in and not have to do a lot of things. Then you can see another one that's $1 million, maybe even the same size. But you can tell it's not taken care of. So that factors into it a lot too. And that's where I think a realtor is really good to talk to about these kind of things, because we kind of have an idea what the market value is, and we know when a house is in good shape and when it's not. So, if it's not it's not worth the price based on the condition, then we can tell you that as well.
Okay.
It makes a huge difference if somebody comes in and everything is buttoned down. You know,
Yeah.
it's a challenge for the inspector to find something, right?
We were blessed with that exact thing, Jana. You know, there's somebody on this group that has been watching the show, and they called us the other day and they said, we want a list. And so exactly that, these clients had done all the maintenance and all the work on their home, and it showed. And the first people that came in wrote an offer on it because they saw that, you know, they saw the estimates that they had for other work that they were thinking about getting done. And they're like, wow, you know, these people they're taking care of it and they're doing it the right way. They were going to do a deck, and the presentation, the money they spent just designing this deck was phenomenal. It made you know that that person was a good person to buy a home from.
Mhm. And we have some people on this group call that had a beautiful house that was very easy to show and sell. And the person who owns the house that Lance has sitting there with the view in the backyard, her house is prepared and beautiful and ready to go too. So yeah, that makes a difference. And then one of the things too for buyer strategies is, again, I was having this conversation with Delania, and you guys can all weigh in on this one because it's like this thing, that if you're looking for an opportunity, if you want to negotiate, you look for the ones that have been on the market for at least 2 months. Am I right? So you're looking at those days on market. And now on the days on market, that you can find that on like alohaliving.com when you're looking for listings, and it tells you the DOM, days on market. And if that's higher than 60, then that means that person is either overpriced it or something's up with it. And that maybe you can go in and like see what's up. Yes.
I mean, even
Yeah.
like, even after a few weeks of being on the market, I feel like the door's open for negotiations.
So
It's not
14
snapped
days?
up right away. Yeah.
Okay, so 14 days. So if it hasn't gone right away, there might be like, okay, this might be an opportunity for me to come in with a why not? Yeah. And
The other thing though, I can say is sometimes you might have a lot of upgrades, like they might have a lot of solar, or they might have really nice finishes, or some type of extra thing that they've done that would justify that price. And that's why maybe it stays on the market a little bit longer. And the higher the price, definitely, you know, sometimes the longer it will stay on. Not necessarily always, but there's usually a correlation.
right. Okay. So at least some strategies people can look at, you know, and you know, for selling and buying. And then we were going to talk real quick about a little tip, trick, Hawaii thing that happens here is property tax assessments. And again, this was brought on by a recent client that is on a tight budget, and she was looking at what the assessment was and said, well, I'm over 70, therefore I'm going to get a tax break, because people over the age of 70 do get tax breaks here in Hawaii. However, what I just learned from talking to the Winnebago team is that that's not always the case. So do you guys want to hit on that with the tax assessments versus what you actually are going to pay for your own assessment? When, I mean, help me on this one. When you have the taxes based on the current property, so that way it's not what you are able to afford, it's whoever had the house before you, that taxes stays with the property.
So when calculating mortgage qualifying, we have to utilize the current tax assessment and rate at what the current owner is paying when qualifying. That's not to say that that is going to stick there. They have the ability to, of course, show that they're an owner occupant, or provide those age discounts and such as well that will ultimately impact them positively down the road. But from a mortgage qualifying perspective, yes, we have to use whatever the current tax amount is in the qualifying ratios.
Okay. And who has to pay the most in terms of taxes? Investors, right? Off-island investors.
Yes.
So if you're buying a condo or a home from an off-island investor, they probably got the highest tax rate that's attached to that property, right? So just so you know that if that's the case, look for that, who owned the property beforehand. And then
And disabled veterans have the lowest.
disabled veterans. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, it doesn't matter how old they are.
I was going to jump into, I just happened, Delaney was brought up, Ilani, and we've always used that for a good point. And so interesting with what Scott and Marla were just talking about is I pulled up the first, I pulled up all the tax bills on them, right? So they're all, well, I'm going to read you off the first tax bill. They're all 810 square feet. And the first property here, the tax bill for this person is $4,201 a year. The next one is $1,408 a year. The next guy is paying $4,274. The one below him is paying $805 a year.
Wow.
So I got the whole list here, but I mean, it's amazing. It goes from 805 to 4274 on the exact same condo, exact same complex condo. Your bill, you know, everything's the same. So that tells you how different it is. And if you've got somebody that's looked at that 810 square foot one that was paying 800 a year, got them qualified, and somebody beat you to it, and you go to the one next door and you don't look at that tax break.
So
And
can I add something to this, Lance?
Yep.
And that's the fact that they're not, each property is not identified separately. It's across the entire condos are all the same. It's not whether one's been remodeled or one's not. They're all equal. So that would make it, because somebody said, well, one might be nicer than the other one, but it's not true. They're all considerably the same across.
So then it's just based on owner occupancy and age.
Right.
And yeah. What some people don't realize too is if it's been owned by several owner occupants over the year, it stays low because it can only go up to 3% a year, right? And if it's been owned by investors over all the years, so that disabled veteran that's 70 years old that buys the condo that's $4,201 a year is not going to get the $800 rate once he's, you know, after his first year. It'll never go back down that low. So
there we go. So speaking of that, some people might want to know, if you do move into a home and you want to challenge what your appraiser, the tax assessment is, how do you make that happen? Does anyone know? Do we
take your money and go to Vegas and put it on the table?
do you have to send like a note into the tax office? I mean, how do you get assessed?
Yeah. You have to file for your exemption. I think it's in June and December. There's 2 time periods during the year when you can file for your exemptions. And then there's like a certain time period after that it'll like go into effect. So you sort of plan on, if you buy a house mid-year, by the beginning of the next year, you're going to see that reduction in your taxes or an increase depending on how your situation changes. I wanted to add to this too. It's kind of not a super common situation, but I have a client that's buying a new construction property, and the property has only been assessed as the land. It hasn't been assessed for the house. The lender actually has to take the purchase price because they can't just pull a number out of thin air of what it is. So they're having to configure the loan amount at that purchase price of the house, which is higher than the actual taxes will be. So it's important always when you're looking at properties, especially when you have that really tight margin on your budget, to know if the taxes are high, or in this case, if there's no taxes yet, make sure you have room in your budget to account for that before you start writing offers.
That's a good one. Yeah.
On that same topic, what I have found from the past in working with new construction is that for qualifying purposes, they have to use the higher amount, but they still only escrow for the actual amount. And on new construction, it can actually get quite tricky, because if it does get assessed in the middle of the year, then the taxes will jump up significantly, but you're still escrowing at the shortage, the small amount. And so then the next year you might have a tax bill come due. So if you are purchasing new construction, it's very important to understand what your actual taxes are and what you're actually escrowing, so that you don't end up the next year with a huge shortage or a huge overage. You'd rather probably have a huge overage. It's like getting a tax refund at that point. But in many cases with new construction, there's a shortage that can occur. And so you just need to be very careful of that if you're looking at new construction.
That's good information. Good job, guys. Okay, so we're about like 40 minutes into this, and we're trying to kind of keep it so people can kind of keep their little, their eyes open, even though we're extremely amazing human beings discussing amazing information. But I wanted to also say that we are going to, like I said, we're going to turn this into a podcast. You can look at the link below, and so if you want to just go off and put your headphones on, you can listen to this, and you'll get Amber Haley's update on East Hawaii with it. And then also we do these events. So we have Lance is going to be talking about specifically West Hawaii statistics as we get the August numbers cleared out. So he's going to be doing this in the first part of September. And that is going to be on September 9th. And then we're going to have Amber do it on September 8th for the East Hawaii market. And then we hope to be doing the third Thursday this next time. Well, the third Thursday is the 15th. So we'll probably come back at the 15th. And if you guys want to keep up to date on when these are all happening, please check out the 365 I'm Moving to Hawaii Facebook page, or you can email me and I'll make sure that we put you on a like basically a monthly calendar in terms of when we're to be doing these. And we also met with a really insightful escrow officer today, who's going to be doing a standalone discussion a little bit more about what happens during escrow, and hopefully he can maybe hit what Scott was saying. So if you guys have questions about the tax assessments, way escrow, all the escrow aspects, all the stuff about escrow, we'll do something for you guys to learn more about that. So with that, thank you to all of these wonderful real estate professionals for helping us with this show this month. And if you do want to be part of the live show or just want to learn more about what we're doing and we put the questions in, send me questions and we'll answer them the next time we get together. So with that, we say aloha and we will see you next time.
Aloha.
Thanks, you guys.
Aloha, guys.